talk, I have a special speaker. Not really, but I'm just kidding. Dynasty is our youth pastor. She is just such an encouraging, spirit-minded person, but also she's real and raw, and that's why she's such a good youth pastor, because teenagers need real. And so she's here to share her testimony. I haven't had a guest speaker in a while, so I'm really excited about this one. We're going to start off with a kind of funny question. What is the funniest thing that happened in the youth group or with teenagers that you ministered?
Honestly, there's a lot. I think one of the main ones was probably handing children the mic when it's not very wise to let anyone speak. And we were sharing testimonies, and one of these kids just, got up there and said something completely out of the ordinary, and I'm not going to say it because it's probably not very good, but it was hilarious. And so, and then kids like to try you and think that, you won't do things back to them, and I've been farted on multiple times in my youth career, and so the funny part is that I do it back, so, it is what it is. And Jaylee's little brother has learned that the hard way. So.
Yeah. He even said that in front of the whole church.
Yeah. So.
But, yeah. And church camps are always a fun time.
Yeah.
Dynasty's definitely the one that will stay up with us and have fun with us. Yeah. I don't think pastor would be like, I'm going to bed.
Yeah. You don't think you could be the most hated at church camp, but I think people don't like rooming with us because we like to party and not just go to sleep, and we like to have fun and enjoy the moments and not just go to sleep when we're tired, and we just stay up and have a good time with everybody. So
yeah, like sleep deprived.
Yeah. We're only there for a couple of days, so might as well. We can sleep on the way home.
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't even know how to get this started. Transition over from, I just know from knowing Dynasty for a while that it's serious, and what she's been through is a lot, and I wouldn't be able to just be put in a youth pastor position after everything, but God's definitely worked in her life, and I really think it's serious, it's such an awesome opportunity that she gets to share it with y'all, and be real and raw with y'all. So, just wherever, let's start with when you first started knowing Jesus.
Okay. I grew up in a family that is mainly Catholic, and still a lot of them are. And my mom was Catholic, and she went because her mom went, and her mom went because her mom went, and it was just more of like a culture thing rather than something that we knew and actually loved to do. And then my dad, he grew up, I really don't know, Baptist. He was one of those kids that would go where there was church because that's what he knew, and they would just try to send him, and that's where he would go. So we really didn't have a specific church that we went to. We more just went to the Catholic church because that's where my mom and my grandma were going. But then also my dad knew people from the Father's house, so every now and then we would pop in, so I would get a little bit of taste of what it was like, and then have to go back and sit in a pew, and then get out at a certain time and leave at a certain time. And so there's a lot of expectations with that.
Yeah, well, that's the same with teenagers today. I mean, just having expectations and not really having a church home. I think it's really important that we have a church family and home that you're planted in, and not just, the Baptist church is having VBS, so I'm going to go here. And then, the Father's house is having church camp, so I'm going to go to that. And then just hopping around and not really being planted. Yeah. And so I just encourage, be planted in somewhere, some church, not be like, hey, come to the Father's house. Come to the Father's house.
We love you.
Yeah, but if you choose somewhere else, just be planted.
Yeah. So just continuing with that, just on Wednesday nights, it was the normal thing to get our sacraments, and it was the first reconciliation, and then you had, what's it called? Confession, and then communion, and then so forth and so forth. Yeah. And so it got to the point where it was me and my mom arguing, talking about I'm not learning anything. We sit there, we hang out with a bunch of people. Our teachers that are teaching us, I see them every Saturday doing exactly what I'm told not to be doing. And so, like, it was always very hard for me, and I'm a very skeptical person. Even now, like, I've had peace with that, but even now, like, certain things I'm very skeptic about. And so I was just that curious kid with a very creative mind, and my parents worked for Daryl and Janet, and so they knew Daryl and Teresa. And so,
which were the youth pastors when you were a kid. Yeah.
And so they were actually the rock leaders first. Oh. I think, same thing. Whatever, basically, yeah. And so they introduced us to the rock and everything. And so my sisters would go every now and then, but for me, Mom was like, no, this is where I want you to go, whatever. And so I went one time, and even that one time was when I asked Jesus into my heart, and I remember, like, crying and having no idea why. And so when kids come up to me and they're like, I don't know, I'm crying, I don't know what's going on, like, I relate to that so hard, because, like, I was that kid, and so I didn't know how to explain it, I didn't know what to say, and so even in those moments, like, I still wanted to go back there, and my mom was like, no, you need to come do this first. Mm-hmm. So I was that kid that would go do that first, because they started earlier and then ended later. And so I would go do that, and I would respect my mom's wishes, but then I'd go to the church afterwards. Mm-hmm. But sometimes my parents wouldn't know. I would just get a ride. So
they would think you're at one church when you're really at the other.
Yeah. And so it was like, you need to go do this, make your first communion. And as soon as I made my first communion, they still would want us to go there. But even after that, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, I need something more. I was that kid that liked to sing all the time on stage. Like, it is what it is. And it kind of flipped, because now it's like, do I want to be up here? Do I not want to be up here? So, like, but it's more of like, I knew I needed something more, and necessarily the Catholic Church just wasn't it for me. And I respect everyone that goes there, and I respect what it taught me as a Christian, but at the same time, I always knew I needed something more, so I chased it.
That's good.
Yeah.
And you really chased the relationship with Jesus, not just the cultural religion, what you have to do, what you have to finish. And I know several kids, even just in my grade alone, we're going through the whole confirmation thing. Yeah. That's our age group right now. And there's just like, we have to go to church on Wednesdays, and then I try to be like, come to the Father's house, and they're like, no, we have church this Wednesday. And I was like, oh, okay. But then they do every other Wednesday. Like, okay, well, on the Wednesdays that you don't have that, come to church. But chase Jesus. Chase your relationship with him, and not just the rules. Yeah.
I also know there's a lot of people in my grade, like, very similar to you, like, that were in the Catholic Church, and they'd be like, well, why weren't you here? And it came to the point where it was like a competition almost, in a way, and I was like, I
see that with our, like, friend groups and everything.
Yeah, and it's not the competition at all. It was just more of, like, I think they were seeing that me as a person was changing, and they were staying exactly where they were at. And I think it wasn't like a jealousy thing, but almost like, I want what you have, but my parents aren't allowing that to happen. Little secret says, like, my parents really weren't allowing, my dad didn't care, but my mom was like, no. And I had tias and I had grandma that were like, dude, like, that you're not going there, like, you're not respecting me, like, whatever. And so there was a lot of headbutting in that too, to the point where, like, we would fight, and there would be bickering between me and my aunts, or they would say something, and I'd be like, well, I know more than you. Like, I would challenge it, and to a point where, like, I would get condemnation by saying, like, simply just challenging what they knew, rather than, like, actually educating them in what they knew. And so just, I know, funny story, Daryl likes to tell it all the time, is I got grounded. And so now, even being a youth pastor, being a youth pastor, I hate when parents, I hope you're listening to this, because grounding your kids from church isn't going to change anything. If anything, it's going to help them, because they're going to get what they needed and what they're seeking out of church, rather than just sitting in their room or hearing you and bickering with you instead. But I got grounded from going to that church. And so I remember, like, we lived down the street from the church. And so I want to say I was like 10. I don't even remember. But I, like, remember sneaking out of the window. My parents were, like, going 90 to nothing.
10 years old. Out to go to children's church.
I was sneaking out, and I walked to church, and I just remember, like, I was in the middle of worshiping, and I was, like, having the best time, and then all as I hear is my dad just like, you hear when your dad looks at you. And so I hear his eyes. And so I was like, oh no. And Daryl just looks at me and he's like, hey, and then, so when I got home, like, I walked out and Daryl was there and he was like, just, like, we'll take her home, like, it'll be okay.
It's weird that your dad went and got you, though, because your mom was the one that's more strict about it.
Yeah, my mom is, but my dad, my mom was,
go get her.
Yeah, my mom was more strict, but my dad was more of, like, you're gonna respect what they say. Like, if she says no, that means no. If I say it's okay, then yes, so, whatever. But that's just a mom and dad thing. Yeah. So yeah, it was just funny, but I just remember like wanting it so bad to the point where like I had to escape that like, religion thing, because even within my own family, I would notice like, hey, you're telling me all these things that I need to do better with my life, but we're sitting here, we're arguing as soon as dad gets home, we're going out and drinking every Saturday, like not us, but just like you're seeing it, and it's like, what does that tell me? Like, how is that supposed to change who I am when you're telling me it's okay to do this, but we have to meet all these expectations and steps to specifically know God for who he is, and that wasn't it at all. So
that's true. Right now the problem is relationship over religion. And even back in the Bible, if we read in the Bible, it talks about the law of Moses too. Yeah. And that's what Jesus came and restored, was the law of Moses. And then Jesus said the new command, or the new law is, first is love God, and then second is love your neighbor. Those are the greatest ones. Yeah. And I mean, once love is relationship, not religion. Like, that's the only law. But then the law of Moses is all these different things. And I was reading about, actually just yesterday, that the law, we're always like follow the law, but the law is to tell us about like what's right and wrong. Yeah. But then Jesus came to show us what's right and wrong. And obviously Jesus, relationship. Yeah,
that's what I put, when you asked me, I wrote some things down. Let me actually read what I wrote. I put that Jesus didn't come to improve religion, he came to fulfill it. And law prior to Jesus was just the purpose to point to us that we needed him, or that we needed some type of law. And so I think the biggest misconception with things like that, and no props to you guys, like I respect you and your beliefs, but more of the misconception is that when Jesus did come and die, the veil that was torn was the representation of the barrier between us and the holy place.
It was at the temple. Yeah. As soon as he died, the veil at the temple.
Because prior to that, the priests were having, like, you were telling the priests, and the priests were going for you. But since Jesus came and died and broke that barrier, now you can go for you and create that relationship just like they were trying to for you. So I think that's the biggest misconception when it comes to that. And just being the youth pastor this year, specifically one little girl, there's a lot of them that have come from the Catholic Church, and so I think God's like trying me. But there's one specific little girl, and she was like, I respect, like, I have to go here on Sundays, like, whatever. She was like, but I have never learned so much. Like, they didn't even know the first book of the Bible or something like that. And that's not saying anything about their teachers or anything, but it's just, it's crazy to think, like, man, I knew the first book of the Bible, like, when I, like, it's crazy to think about the differences between those two. And she was just like, when I come here, I'm so ready for worship, like, I don't even care, like, to play games or anything. And that's what it's about. Like, it's not about the games, it's not about getting you there, it's about the place that you meet when you are there. And so I think she was just like, I've just never experienced it. And she was like, one day, she goes, I prayed for somebody. I didn't know what I was saying. Tears were coming down my face. They started crying. So I know I did something, but I don't know what it means. And so, like, just being able to hear me and somebody else, it was, like, so cool to be able to relate to. So,
yeah. Well, I don't even know how to back that up. Just always goes back to relationship. Yeah. Just always, every time. And like she keeps saying, not against the churches. Like, those things are great if you're involved, great, but want to get more. We're not just, it's same with salvation, like switching it not just to the church, but salvation. Once you get saved, then you want to get baptized, and then you're filled with the Holy Spirit. You know what? You want to keep doing next steps and doing more, and not just stopping at salvation. Yeah. And so if you're at church, don't just stop with being at church. Yeah, and I think that's something too, like with the Catholic Church, you have those steps, and the further you are, like, the more holy you are, whatever. Yeah, but
even then, I'm like, if you have those steps, then you could be willing to do those steps faster and not, like, following, like, some expectation, just God's expectations on this side of it. And I get to have a lot of conversations with my sisters and stuff now. And so, like, it's cool being the little sister and still be like, hey, can you pray for me? Like, I'm going through this. Can you do this? And it's just cool to see because they are still, like, they married into another, like, Catholic too as well. And so I respect them, they respect me, but they also know both sides of it. So they're kind of like super Catholics, if I put it. Yeah, like, they know what it's like to have a relationship, and they still seek that relationship on top of being respectful to culture in a way. So
yeah, well, I'm like my aunt when it comes to that. My aunt married a Mexican, and I'm like, I want, it's the Spanish culture that's mainly Catholic, like, not in a mean way at all, but not by any means, but that's just obvious. And so my aunt married into Catholicism. I don't even know if that's, but then now he's going to a non-denominational church with her too, and it's just crazy because they had once you have kids, they're like, how do we want to raise our kids? Yeah. Like, do we want them to be, she's non-denominational, or do we want them to grow up in a Catholic church? Yeah. It's like, do we want them to follow rules and regulations or have a relationship with Jesus? Yeah. Just either, just things to consider whenever you're weighing the two.
And I do believe, like, the Catholic Church has, like, modernized a little bit, and so I do think there are Catholics that still have that relationship, but there's a boundary when it comes to being tied to that religion and that religious spirit of having to meet an expectation that wasn't even met by Jesus. Like, he was the only one that did it, and even when he did meet that expectation, they still crucified him. So, like, it's just hard to differentiate between the two. But I think the game changer for me was being able to realize that Jesus wasn't just somebody that I saw behind an altar on Sundays. Like, he was somebody that was right there with me, that I could talk to, that I could have that relationship to, that I could cry to, that I could be mad at even and question, because there's been times in my life where I've questioned and all that stuff. But even then, like, coming to this church didn't make me still not be different from the people that were in and out, if that makes sense. Like, it was just something that I knew I needed, but then as soon as I found it, as you get older, the world, and it's Christian Teen Talk, so when you hit that teen age, it's like your hormones and everything are going crazy, and people that don't have that foundation around you are also tempting you to do other things. And my mom was always the one that wouldn't let me go over to certain people's houses, and I'd get so mad, and I'm like, oh, they're such a good person, like, you're a terrible person, and so now, even growing up, like, you realize so much that she was saving you in those moments. So, like, if I did go over there, like, how would I have ended up? But I would say even going into high school and middle school, like, I wasn't this perfect kid, but I was okay, but I wasn't, like, completely, like, in it. I wasn't in it. I knew it, but I wasn't completely in it. And I would say probably closer to my junior and my senior year was when me and my brother were, like, two Tasmanian twins. And so, like, we were not twins, but, like, it was, like, we had the same friend group. We did the same things.
We were pretty close.
Yeah, and so we basically would say, hey, I'm going here, and it was with him. And then I would say, like, he would say he would be with me, and then we'd end up in the same place somehow and both be in trouble, And there was times where, like, specifically a story that's funny but not probably something that I would agree with doing now. One time, like, I told my mom was going to a friend's house, and she was like, okay, and I went to a party, and I show up, and he was like, why are you here? And he was, like, so mad at me, and I was like, why are you here? And he was like, well, I told mom I was with you, and I was like, well, that's funny, because I said I was going to somebody's house, and so, like, we were just sitting there arguing, and I just remember leaving earlier than him, because I was like, I cannot do this, so, like, I left earlier than him, and he just would not come with me, and I was like, dude, like, you have to come home, and he was like, nah, I'm good, I'll stay. So then that next morning, him and his friend didn't get home, and it took him like 3 hours to get home from Brownwood, Texas. And so when he got there, he got caught, and I was just laying in my bed listening to get in trouble, like, man, I was there too, So, like, it's cool to hear those times, but, like, also me looking back now, like, he's in a completely different position than I am, and I mean, we still are just as close, But I think just being around the group that does all the stupid stuff isn't going to get you anywhere. I think even if they have some sort of foundation and they like to claim, you know, the name of Jesus, they like to post the scriptures on their Instagram notes, they like to do all those things. I, for instance, can tell you that I was one of those people, and it was harder for me because at one point I was like so hungry, I wanted more, and I got more, but then when I'd go home, it was a completely different story. Yeah. So, like, I feel for the kids that want more, but when they return home, it's something completely different in the expectation. And, like...
And so you're coming from that side.
Yeah.
And I'm coming from a completely different side where I'm the kid that... Or the teenager that is inviting the different kids.
Yeah.
And, or, like, different kids from different churches or, like, not even in church. And then I'm like, why is it so hard for you to show up to church? To me, it seems so easy. Just come to church. Yeah. You know, but then I don't see at home where it's like their parents are like, no, you cannot go. You're grounded from this church. Yeah. And so then just that makes me, like, be more, like, I don't know. Yeah. Have more compassion, like, I guess, or mercy, because I'm like, it doesn't seem that hard. Like, it makes me kind of mad. Yeah. Like, why is it so hard for you just to show up to church?
And so, like, even being a youth pastor, like, you know, you constantly are inviting kids to come. Like, you see that they're hurting and you know the answer. And so you're constantly inviting them. And I see myself in them once again because I'm like, man, this kid has nobody to hold him accountable. Yeah. Like, it was so much, like, I knew... Because when I did come to church by myself, when I did come on Wednesdays and my family wasn't, or, like, they didn't see them every Sunday, it was more of, like, a celebration when they came. If you made sense, like, oh, the Salvadors are here, like, you know, and now I'm like, dude, I'm here every Sunday, like, why can't you give me a shout out, you know, like, and so, now, like, just looking back on that, like, it just hurts my heart for the ones that aren't celebrated, that go home like that, and then come now, and it's like, man, like, you're judged by your parents, not necessarily who you are trying to become. And so that was a big thing for me, and just knowing that you can't be lukewarm with one in and one out. And specifically my senior year, I remember being so, like, far from God that it wasn't, like, super far, because I still had, like, I was helping with the rock and stuff. And so, like, even being honest, like, I wasn't even the perfect person. Like, I'm not even near worthy at that time to be helping a kid get, like, pray for a kid, you know, whatever. But even in those moments, God reminded me that it's okay to mess up and that not everybody's perfect and we're human. So there's no room to judge that. But at the same time, you're held to a higher expectation. And so I think that's one of the most things that scared me, because there was a situation, and I don't even remember what it was. And, sorry, Maria, I love you. We offended someone, and Teresa was like, you have to apologize. Like, we don't care what it is. Like, we have to get rid of this. And I was like, no, not me. Like, I was hard-headed. I was like, I'm not going to sit here and apologize to someone or anything, you know, whatever. And so eventually it came to the point where we apologized. And then later down the road, they were telling the parents of, like, my best friend, like, we grew up together, that I was a terrible influence and that nobody needed to hang around me. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't ever want to be that person. And so even then, like, that's when I wasn't even doing the worst of it, you know, like, I was still living for the Lord. And so I think hearing that from people that, like, not necessarily impacted me, it really hurt me. And just to see, like, the other side of it, like, knowing other people that they were raising up were doing worse things than I was. And so I think it discouraged me, and that's why I decided to go off. And so I think that's important for me as a youth pastor. Like, I call it my superpower, because, like she said, I'm real. Like, if a kid comes up to me and was like, man, I need you to come get, like, calls me and is like, I need you to come get me. I went to a Razor and I'm so drunk. Like, you know, like, I'm that person that's going to be like, look, like, if you continue this, you're going to end up dead on the side of the road. You're going to kill somebody or, you know, whatever. But I'm going to also be the one that says, you know what? We all mess up. I still love you. You can still come to my church. I don't think anything less of you. Like, I've been there and I'm going to go pick you up. What else do you need? And I think that's just because I've seen the other side of it from being the kid that was like, no, stay away from that person because they made one bad decision and I don't want that. So it was really hard to not be that person for somebody else, you know?
Yeah.
So.
That's...
I mean, it is.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
with so, and I'm just like, how am I supposed to?
Yeah. I'm just trying to give you. I don't want to talk too much. Like I feel like I'm talking so.
No, I want you to talk.
Yeah.
I want you to talk a lot. So you were still going to church like throughout high school. You were going to church, but then you were also partying.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm always the other side.
Yeah.
Like, I think about the story of the prodigal son, and I feel like the older son was home. And I'm like, hey, I'm here. You know, like you're celebrating him because he just came home. But I've been here the whole time and haven't been celebrating. If that makes sense. But so I see like I'm the kid that will be not I'm better or anything. No, like I'm trying to be humble. Like and like does that make sense? Like I'm at church, but then I see other people that come to church and then they go party. Or
it's hard not to be like, dude, like I literally like there's no way you're up there right now trying to do this. I agree.
But like that, or just like see them praying for someone and then knowing that they like just snuck out or something. But then it's like God's love covers. Like the blood covers all, you know? And so then I just have to pray for the grace and mercy that God had, and because I'm no better. And for God, all sin's the same. So me lying or gossiping is the same as them going and getting drunk. And to me, that's also crazy to think about. I'm like, so in high school, you were the both feet and lukewarm Christian.
Which is crazy though that you say that, but like I always wanted to be like I would cry about this all the time because like I love you, Mom and Dad. But, like, going to Daryl and Teresa's house was, like, an escape for me. Because their foundation was their foundation. And, you know, I've always, like, thrived to want two parents that led my household under God. Like, you know, like, being able to, like, you better get up. Like, we're going to church today. Or, like, every single Sunday. Not just, like, every 2 Sundays or Easter or it's Mother's Day, so we got to go because of your grandma. And that to a point where like I was going by myself, but as soon as like it was like Easter or something like that, I was having to go to the Catholic Church. And so because of offending somebody else, you know. And so I think it's just like, what do you do? So like even now, like I know that people thrive to have what you have. So even in those moments where they're like trying to kind of be like, you need to be humble, but it's not that. It's just that they are not necessarily like thriving, but like wanting what you have, and that's hard to deal with because on the other hand, it's like, man, you're like, man, I would just want to sneak out one time and be like, you know, but I can't because the Holy Spirit's like pulling my hair back in the house, you know? And so I think that, there can be both sides of that.
Yeah, it's like those cartoons where it's like the devil's on one shoulder and the angel's on the other. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have all these people on the angel side, like my parents, my grandparents, literally everyone in the church. I have such a, like, my car, everyone knows my car. If I, like, am driving around town, someone from the church will text me and be like, hey, I saw you, make sure you're off that phone. That's happened so many times ever since I've been driving. Or, like, and then I'll text back and be like, I was just changing the song.
It's like, sorry.
Like, and everyone notices me. You know? So if I ever wanted to do something bad, like, I don't know if I could. Because I would get, you know, caught so easily or scolded. But that's the thing, like, I just grew up with my grandparents are pastors. My parents are, like, basically the associate pastors. Like, what do I do?
Yeah, that's so funny.
So that's when people are like, oh, Jayla's so blah, 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 Christian this, Christian that. It's like, if I'm being honest, if my parents aren't the way they are, like, I love them so much because of the way they raised me and my brothers. If we weren't raised like that, I would be with the other teenagers. I'd be a cheerleader. I'd be whatever I'd want to be doing, whatever I want to do. If my parents weren't, let's go to church, let's get you in youth group. I probably wouldn't have a podcast. Wouldn't be, you know, so deep into my Christian faith. And so I know how, like, with your parents, like, how you feel.
That's funny, though, because, like, you're talking about how people would just, like, text and say, like, hey, you need to do this, or, like, they have an expectation of you, which my parents were sick. Don't get me wrong. Like, we have great morals. Like, they're awesome, and I love them so much. But, like, my parents' friends were the ones that were like, hey, I partied with your kid last weekend. And they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, no, like, we weren't there. Like, you know. And so then now that we're older, I was like, hey, you remember that one time that we threw this party and it was supposed to be with, like, you know, there was a bunch of adults and we saw you there? And I'm like, nope, no what you're talking about, like, that's not me, like, you know. And so, like, in those moments, I'm like, man, like, I wish I was the kid that my parents drug me back into the house, like, you know, in which they probably would have at that point, but, like, they also didn't know, because me and my brother were me and my brother, so, but, yeah, just, that's crazy.
Yeah, so then after you graduated.
So, when I graduated, I was the kid that wanted to, leave San Saba and never come back.
Yeah.
I was
like everyone is.
Yeah, so I was that kid, and just more so because, like, not necessarily, like, I love my family and all that, but I just wanted to get out. I wanted a different start. I wanted not to have an expectation of my older sisters, or not have a expectation like, your brother's gonna do better than you, like, you better figure it out, you know. And not that they held those expectations on us, but personally, I hope,
like it was there. Yeah.
And so, just being, like, we were all 2 years apart, so Candace was, like, the mother of us, and then there's Lex, and she was, like, my best friend, but we, like, hated each other when we were too close, like, when we were with each other too much, and then there was me and my brother, and it was, like, we had the same friends, we did everything together, and, like, so now he lives in, like, Texas City, and it's so weird, like, it's so weird. But I was the kid that wanted to leave, you know, whatever, and so I planned on going to college.
Every kid that wants to leave is the kid that ends back.
Welcome to the father's house. I planned on going to college, and that summer was full of, I was going to get to be a leader at church camp for the first time. I just went on a chrysalis. Let me back up a little bit. So, like, in the spring, like April, I snuck out. And I was supposed to be working on a project with my best friend Alyssa, and I hope they're listening to this, because, sorry, Gailey. So
all these people you're mentioning, you have to send this to
so we were supposed to be working on a, what's it called? A 4-H thing where we were supposed to be baking something or whatever. And, it was because we had to. It was 4th grade. Like, I mean, it is what it is. At least we got to cook something and eat it. I don't know. So that was the plan. And so I had left. Well, I was going to hang out with a boy, but in reality, my sister was like, hey, I'm in the hospital. Well, like, I have appendix, whatever. And they live in San Angelo. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not going to go hang out with that boy. So I started driving to San Angelo. Well, in the midst of driving to San Angelo, this stupid boy that was around the same age as me was in a one-way and hit me, like, head on. And so the car that, I could probably pull it up, but, like, I was in a Kia Soul, and his...
Those are small.
Yeah, it was and it was a truck. And so, like, literally the front end was so smushed, like, there was no way, like, if you looked at the car, you would have no idea that I would have lived, whatever. So, that happened, and I guess I was, like, unconscious for a minute, because, like, when I woke up, I was like, what the heck, and the guy was, like, banging on my window, and, like, hey, can I use your phone? And I'm like, how are you gonna use my phone? No, you can't. And it was somewhere in the car. And I was like, yeah. So then the only person I knew to call was my older sister, which lived there, which was Candace. Both of them lived there. I have a half sister, Amanda, which not really our half sister. She lived with us her whole entire life, but nobody really hears about her.
I didn't.
Yeah. So she. Candace came with Ruben, her now husband, and they thought it was just, like, kind of funny in a way. And then Ruben's like, well, don't say anything, because he's going, like, to school for, like, law, because he wants to be a state trooper or whatever. And he was like,
so don't mess up his life, because he almost ruined yours. Oh my gosh.
So he was like, don't say anything, because, like, you don't know, like, you're not in the right, you could have a concussion, like, you don't really know what happened, don't answer anything. And so they're like, do you need to go to the hospital? And I was like, no, I'm fine. So then I get out of the car, and, like, my sister's like, dude, you're bleeding, you need to go to the hospital. And so I had, like, a scar now on my stomach from, like, the seatbelt and stuff. And so I did need to go to the hospital, and I was bleeding a little bit internally, like, whatever, it wasn't a big deal. So then my mom comes, and this is so funny, like, probably nobody ever knows this, but...
we're talking about a car crash, and you're like, this is so funny.
No, it is funny, because I was getting a CAT scan, MRI, whatever, done, and so I'm laying on the table, and the guy was like, oh, congratulations, and I was like, excuse me, like, this isn't congratulating, like, I just got in a wreck, like, I just ruined my life, this is my senior year, like, I was sitting there, and he was like, yeah, you're pregnant, and I was like, oh, no, I'm not, like, which, it was so funny, and I was like, no, my mom's in the other room. Like, this is not possible. Like, this is not possible. Like, this is not possible. And he was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, that was messed up. Like, like, he was like, wrong patient. And I was like, yeah, you better get everything else right before you inject me with something and kill me. Like,
awful to even, like...
Yeah, it was so bad. But, funny, terrible story. I was scared for my life. I probably pooped my pants in that moment. And, like, whatever. And so...
Literally right before this podcast, you were talking about you didn't have a funny story, and now you're sharing this.
Sorry. But it's just crazy how that happened. But, like, I remember being in the hospital, and they wouldn't give me any meds, so I was like hurting, and the adrenaline was coming off, and so I was hurting so bad, and they wouldn't give me the meds. My mom got there, she was mad that they wouldn't give me medicine, and she was more mad at me because I wasn't at Alyssa's house baking whatever we were baking. And so in that moment, like, it just kind of reminds me, like, people will judge you as soon as they see what happens, because that's what happened. They weren't gonna give me medicine until they gave me a talk screen. And so, like, they're like, oh, this girl was like either drunk or on drugs, and this is what happened. Because that's scary, because kids my age, like, that's what they do. And the other kid was another kid, and we didn't fight it, which I don't remember why, but it was just, on the screen when we got it back, like, the report, the guy never came back to talk to me. He said that we were, like, playing chicken, and it was just teenagers playing chicken, and nobody got hurt. Like, it was all good. And so that was not the case at all. But then, even being in the hospital for those couple of days and coming back to school, and my friends texted me, and they were like, hey, like, people are saying you were on drugs, people are saying you were drunk, people were saying this, and I'm like, there's no freaking way, like, you can make that up about me. Like, I don't do that stuff. And as a kid, like, that was one thing that like, everybody knew, like, I wasn't about to smoke weed, like, I wasn't about to do that in high school, this is high school. And so, like, I wasn't that kid. Like, I wanted to go have fun with everybody else, because I was, like, whatever they did is cool, but, like, I didn't want to do that, because my family has, like, I've seen, the outcome. And so just being there and, like, in that moment and being judged that way, it did something to me.
It shows you that who you hang out with is who you
Yeah.
That's kind of like, so if people are saying, oh, well, you hang out with those people at party, so... I mean, it makes sense for you to be doing it too, even though you personally didn't. You're still there.
Yeah. So even after, fast forward to that, we actually made it to the playoffs in softball that year, and I was just a big softball player.
No one ever intended that.
I was a big softball player, and that season was very, like, turnaround season for us, because my freshman year I made it on varsity, but our coach I did not enjoy our coach.
JV and varsity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so basically those first 2 years were really hard for me, and it was like I was starting over seniors, I was starting over upperclassmen, and it was always this big deal. And our boys in our grade, first off, there was only like 27 of us, so our boys in our grade were always like nitpickers, like they were always trying to start something, and so they were always like, hey, you're the best one, right, and then just trying to put words in my mouth. And so then it'd come to my coach, and she's like, I'm tired of you acting like this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't do anything. Yeah. And so even now, like, to the point where I wanted to be humble, which I knew I could have, an ego. But even then, as a freshman, like, coming onto an upperclassman team, like, I was scared. Like, I didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
And my sister, her friends were there, and they're like, she's not like that. Like, they would stick up for me. That's and good. So even then, in those moments, like, I was like, what the heck, like,
Yeah.
But it kind of, like, ended a era for me, I guess you could say. And so when I didn't get to play my last softball game, okay, I did, but I wasn't supposed to. When I didn't get to play, like,
because of the rec?
Yeah,
so because I was that rec spring break.
Yeah,
you didn't get to play.
Yeah, and so yeah, pretty much. And so then when the last game we were, I was supposed to pitch, and we were playing the number 1 seed in state of Texas, which was like Crawford or something like that back then, or Clyde, I couldn't remember. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to be the only one on this team to hit the ball. And then Coach McCombs is like, you're going to be the only one on this team to sit the bench. And I was like, absolutely not. And he was like, you can't play. And I was like, yes, I can. You better put me in. And he goes,
so
he was like, well, if you're going to put me in, then like, he was like, if I'm going to put you in, then you're going to be where I need you to be. And I was like, on the mound, I can't do, like, I was hurting, like, and physically, like, I couldn't move in the motion to pitch, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna put you on the mound. I was like, against them? Like, against them. Like, they're gonna hit a dinger, like, whatever, somebody's gonna hit me with the ball. And so, it was, like, throwing change-ups. Like, it was embarrassing. And so, like, even then, like, my confidence just went down, and he was like, I'm tearing up, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna put you somewhere else. So he puts me on third base, and I'm like, hold up, they're number one team, they're gonna hit me drives, like, and it was funny because the coach was like, oh, we're going there, like, she's confident, like, you know, whatever. And so first 3 pitches got, like, hit right to me. I dove for one. I literally messed my stuff up all again. And then I was diving outside and, like, scorpioned and everything. Sorry, I'm, like, living my glory day right now. But, like, it was just, like, I don't know. Being in that moment was knowing that, like, I was there for a purpose, but I lost also because I wanted to make a stupid decision. And so just for encouragement, like, you guys, anything can be slipped from you at any time, any moment. Not necessarily saying that you get to leave this earth at that time, but stupid decisions come with stupid consequences, and unfortunately, you look back at those things and you're like, what could I have done better? So that's just a word of encouragement. I don't even know what I just said.
You could have been baking at a friend's house.
Yeah, I could have been baking at a friend's house.
But because you went to San Angelo.
Yeah, which we did eventually bake, and we ended up getting grand champions, so that's a whole nother story. Well, but yeah, that's us. But I cannot bake to save my life, so it wasn't us. I'm pretty sure Alyssa's mom made it for us, so so I think that's cheating, but my bad. It was years ago. Okay. Let me think, where were we at?
Chrysalis.
Yeah, so after that, like, I become, like, really, like, I don't want to go anywhere, you're not gonna make me do anything, and then Teresa was like, you better get it, like, she was, like, my mom's, like, strong arm, if that makes sense, like, mom's like, I can't get into her, her dad can't get to her, like, it's your turn.
And so, funny because that's you.
Me, yeah. It's so funny, yeah, because it's like, I don't know what to do with this kid anymore, can you please come get them, like, whatever, and I'm like, and so I'm like, man, I feel you right now, like, I can't believe, like, you know, and even then, like, I would tell her things that I wouldn't be able to tell my parents at the same time, and then she would go snitch, and I'm like, man, I don't want to be that person, but I've had to be that person so many times just this year, and it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, like, if I don't speak up, then they're never going to be aware of things like that. And so, crap, I lost my spot again. Where was that? Chrysalis, yeah. Sorry, guys.
Funny.
Chrysalis, she was like, I pay for you to go somewhere, and you're going. You don't have an option. Well, me and Marissa, were the only two, and nobody has ever been to these before. And so it was like, you're going. There's not an option. This is what's gonna happen. It is what it is. And I was like, no, like, that's not gonna happen. And they're like, yes, it is. And so they made us go, and I remember, like, not wanting to get off, and I was like, this is so, like,
I'm sorry,
it's such
off.
Like, yeah, like, I was like,
out.
I'm not gonna get out of the car, whatever. Okay, I'm from South America.
Yes.
And she was like, you're gonna give me your phone, and I was like, no, I'm not. And so she was like, yeah, just leave your phone in the car or whatever, and I was like, no. So me and Marissa both ended up with our phones. We didn't give them to anybody. And I was like,
you're supposed to be completely disconnected.
Yeah.
Everything, and just spend time with Jesus that weekend.
This is it was like, this is a cult, like, you're dropping me off, or my parents do not agree to this, there's no service, like, I'm about to call my mom, like, whatever. And so the first night was super hard. The second night, I met this girl named Julian or whatever, and so Marissa was having a really hard time, but I was, like, having the best time of my life, and I don't know how, but it just happened. So, like, reality was swept for me, and I was just, like, in the presence, like, wanting to meet new people. Yeah. And so there was a time where a lady was like, have y'all known each other your whole life? And we're like, no. Like, we just met, like, an hour ago or something, you know? And so I remember even being there and just being able to get to experience that. I remember one night, I can, without saying too much about it, because we're not supposed to, one night specifically, I had, like, a super encounter with God, and I was like, all right, this is it. Like, you know, you've had the one cat life, and that's it. Like, that's all God's giving you. Like, you're gonna have to full force, Bible in your hand, like you're going to be the person.
Oh, that makes sense. It took me a second. Like, cats have lives.
Yeah. And so, I was like, sorry, you got me out.
Sorry,
I was like, you Bible in your hand, like you're gonna be the person that God has called you to be, regardless. And I was like, okay, like this is awesome. Like I was super fired up, and I remember like my dad being so proud of me and showing up, and he was like bawling his eyes out, and my mom was still kind of a skeptic about like things that we did, and she was even there like bawling her eyes out, being able to hear like my testimony and me getting to apologize to them for doing things that I probably shouldn't have done. And just after Chrysalis, I was on a high, and I was like, oh yeah. And then they talked about like the 4th day, and I'm like, I don't believe in that. Like I'm going like head first. Like I was basically a baby Christian all over again. I was ready to go to church camp, and they were letting me be a leader, and being a leader is a lot more fun than being a camper, because you can like tell them to chill at times, and like you get just to experience, and you can to be in charge. So like being a teenager just graduating with kids that are like just right there with you that you're going to school with, it was just like a high to be in charge in a way. And so I just remember that we went to Chrysalis, we had like 3 days, and then it was time to leave for camp. And so I was super excited, and then on the way to camp, we ended up getting in a van accident, and it's kind of easier to talk about now just because God's given me peace about that. But we were driving, and another car had hit us. Sorry.
It's like a serious, like serious.
Sorry, it's usually how it happens. A car had hit us, and it turned out that he was intoxicated and impaired with drugs and stuff. And so we didn't find that out until a lot later. But in that moment, I just remember sitting in a van with being in charge, just getting out of a wreck, and just hearing the screams and the wails and everybody yelling at me because I was the only one alive in the front seat. And so in that moment, it was just really hard. Like, it kind of like felt like, I don't know, have you ever been in a moment where you're about to pass out? Mm-hmm. Okay, so like kind of feels like that. Like everything's muffled, like you're there but you're not there, and you're just kind of like in a gaze basically. And so just seeing and experiencing all of that, and then Daryl opens my door and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Why are you checking on me?" Yeah, two different vans.
So you were in the girls' van,
and then the boys' van.
Were actually in front.
Yeah, they were in front.
Yeah,
they saw the car, but because the brake light or something, we couldn't see it fast enough, and by the time we swerved, it was just enough time for them to miss my side of the van, because I was in the passenger seat. And so he opened my door and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Am I okay? Like, you don't see your wife?" Like, like I was mad. I was freaking out. And he was apologizing to me rather than like checking. And I was like, "I'm okay. Like, it was just a wreck. Like, I'm okay. Like, whatever." And at that moment, like nothing really registered. And it was just like, I'm about to hit foot first. I'm about to be able to be in charge. I'm about to get to live my life. And then it's like, I was like, just kidding. I'm taking your biggest mentor away from you. Mm-hmm. And so in that moment, it didn't sink in until we got to the hospital. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody was like, maybe she had to get out of the way in order for you to hit your full potential. And I was like, what?
Yeah, like that does not help in that moment.
Yeah, and so I like just began to cry. My parents like zoomed over there, and so I was crying in the bed, and the lady was like, "Can you not feel that?" And I was like, "No, like I'm fine." She was like, "Oh," she's like, well, something's wrong. And so like nothing was wrong. I just was completely like full of like, I was really about to do it. Yeah, I was really about to do it, and like I was in shock, and I was like, I was really about to do it, and now I can't. And so just the stuff leading up after that, like my best friend was in the hospital, and I was at home, which my knee was all blown out, like whatever, and it's just crazy that I was in the front seat, and one person died, and then like I'm just sitting there and I get to live. Like, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And so I'm like, God, why did you spare me once again? Mm-hmm. And so in that
So now your life's been saved twice.
Yeah.
And
so
Rex.
Yeah. Sorry. And not my fault. Like, my husband will tell you, like, you've had more wrecks than me. Like, you're a terrible driver. But I was like, no. Because it wasn't my fault. But
this wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. I remember being at home and just people wanting to come and see me, and I was just like, tell them I'm asleep, like, I don't want anybody coming. I remember my friends coming and laying on my floor, and like my sisters and my brothers taking turns in the bed. Sorry, this part is emotional.
Yeah.
But I just remember laying there and just thinking about, like, why do I get to live? Why, like, she was helping people and I was failing you. Like, why do I get to stay here? Why do I get to stay here twice? Like, you know, why didn't you just take me? And I remember being so mad at Daryl for no reason. I think it was more just yeah. And I didn't want to be, but I was just so angry. And once I figured that out, like, grief works in different ways. There's steps and everybody does it differently. But I was just so angry at that time that I didn't want to go anywhere. But then my sister was like, no, you have to go. Like, you need to get out. And so I didn't take a break. Within a month, I was packed and ready to go to college. And so I went to ASU. And when you're in college, you get to do everything alone. And so, meanwhile, everybody else had time to grieve and had everybody to grieve. I was doing it alone. And so, in those moments, my mom would try, and I just turned her away because I was so afraid of having a relationship with someone and getting it deeper and then eventually losing them. Yeah. And so I was like, I can't do this with anybody. Like, I know you're my mom. I already kind of have that relationship with you, but I don't want anything to do with you. Yeah. And so my sister would try, and she'd be like, you need to go to counseling. And I'd be like, no, you need to go to counseling. Like, I was just very hard-headed. And I knew that what I needed was God, but I also knew what I didn't need was God. And so in those moments, it was like I was numb. I didn't know what to do. I was having nightmares with, like, different people in the driver's seat while I'm in the passenger seat just watching them. It was like getting hit over and over and over again. And so I never, like, got the point of that until, like, I started coming out of it, if that makes sense. And so it got to the point where I turned to boys to try to fill a void, and it didn't work. And it was not the best option, but it was like boys, boys, boys. And if it wasn't boys, 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 it was boys to go to the parties to get the alcohol. And so it was to the point where I was doing anything and everything to try to just sleep because I could not sleep. Yeah. And so there was days that I didn't go to class, and there was days that my friends, I've had friends, and I don't know how I made them, but apparently I did. And so to the point where they're even like, you don't want to go anywhere with us, like, you know, whatever it is. And so in those moments, I kind of had to explain to them, like, this is what happened. I really don't want to be your friend, but I'm keeping you around because, you know, you're kind of making me happy every now and then. Yeah. And so I was doing drugs. Like I said I would never do it, and I caught myself doing it. And in those moments, I let myself go. And one time, me and my mom just got into this big argument, and she was like, you're not Dynasty anymore. And I was like, what? Like, I'm here. Like, sorry I grew up. Like, if you don't like me, then, like, get away from me, you know? And they were like, no, you're not Dynasty anymore. And I was like, what the heck? And so I took that. I ran with it. I was a hardhead. But also, I was getting letters. I never really read my chrysalis letters. I mean, I read the ones that I wanted to read. But the letters that I got from chrysalis from my aunt and my grandma, and the same ladies that were telling me, like, what I was doing, they didn't agree with because it wasn't part of the Catholic Church or whatever. They were telling me how proud they were of me, and they see that I'm being a different person. And, like, seeing that side of it, I'm like, okay, I was making a difference, you know? And so in that moment, I'm like, okay, I can't be here, can't be around these people. So then I quit college. And for me, that's a big thing for me to quit something. And so even when it comes to, like, grades, because, like, it was just something that I, like, wanted to do. So even now, like, my GPA is a joke. Like, we joke about it now, but even then, like, it still hurts because it's like, it reminds me of a time when, like, I wasn't functional, you know? Yeah. And so I came home. I decided to get my CNA. I did all of that. But I was coming to church by myself every Sunday, but still doing all the things that I couldn't let go of because in some sort, like, God was giving me what I needed, but it wasn't giving me what I needed. And so I was chasing after that, And then me and my dad ended up getting into a really big fight or something. Yeah, something like that. And then
just another fight.
Yeah, just another fight. And then after that, I moved in with my sister, and we were roommates. So this is a sister that we can be like this, and then we want to knock each other out within a week. Yeah. And so, so we moved in together. I got a job over there, and once again, I'm running away from what God's trying to give me. Right. And so, in that moment, that's when your mom and dad came.
And so the thing is, back to the going through all of this. We actually, when the wreck happened, we were actually at Home Depot buying paint while that's going on to move here to San Saba to start. They were gonna help Daryl and Teresa be youth pastors, not be the youth pastors. They were gonna help, and so they were like all excited because they actually just helped with some type of youth conference or something a couple weeks before youth camp. So it was like that happened. There was like a youth revival going on in San Saba, basically. Like through our youth group, and that was our age group and everything, and so then my parents were excited to come and join that, what was happening with the youth, and so then that's how my parents got involved with Dynasty, because they ended up having to move here to be the youth pastors instead of help with the youth pastors.
And I remember like them coming here, and like they were awesome, and I love them so much right now, but for all the kids to transition, everybody hated them almost. And it wasn't them as people. It was just that there was a void that's gone, and they just had an expectation. And so even then, that's biblical. Like, you have an expectation of what you want your relationship to be like with God, and sometimes your expectation isn't His, and your expectation of yourself isn't His. And so you've got to know the difference between what He wants for you, and you have to be able to ask. And so I think, that's just a message in itself. But even past that, like, quickly before that, I went and did some more stupid stuff and everything, and then I came back, and she asked me to start helping with the youth when I was there, and I did, and it was some sort of like kind of offense in a way in my mind, and then like, oh, I need this, so I became a youth kid again, and it was like weird. But like at this time I was probably like 19 or 20. 20. I would have been 20. Yeah, I was 20, and so I was about to like start going head first into my relationship, and then my 21st birthday happened, and it was like my sister threw this huge party, and I love her for that, but like it was awful. Like,
in her mind, she was like, 21st, legally drink and all.
Like she was doing the sister thing. And so I'm like, oh no, like I hate this. And so even then, like I was just once again going down the whole not saying, and I'm not gonna be the one to tell you that I'm the perfect person. If you come up to me and be like, yo, like you drank, and I was like, yep, I did, like that's just me. Like, I'm sorry, like I don't do it, I don't go to get drunk anymore, like that was me then, this is not me now. And so like it's so hard when people, even now it's crazy, it's like they'll be like, I'm so proud of you, like I want to be like you, and I'll be like, well, you can, like you just gotta start, start somewhere and find somebody. And so even when like keep going, I messed up a lot, and I don't even remember what like strictly brought me back to church, but I want to say I got with this dude and his mom was like super like Christian, like, or proclaimed to be. And so I remember helping with the youth, and one day I stayed the night at her house, and she was like, oh, you found a youth pastor and a girl that will spend the night at your house. Where did you find this girl at? You know, and I was like, oh, okay. This is awkward. And so like in that moment I was like, okay, I gotta change something.
That was definitely a lukewarm moment. Like, on one hand you're a youth pastor, on the other you're staying.
I wasn't a youth pastor yet, but like I was like, helping. And so then that same summer we went to church camp, and Daryl was there, and Daryl was having like a hard time even going, and so getting in the van for the first time, even for me, it was like, oh crap, like, because your parents got COVID, and at first they they're like, hey, can you go with us and help? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. And then the last day they're like, by the way, we're not going. And I was like, you're not what?
Yeah.
And so I was put in a position where I've been there before, so I get to tell everybody where to go, but also I've been there before as a camper, not as a leader, and am I in any spot to be a leader to go to camp?
Yeah.
So
you were going this time to be a head leader,
yeah,
not a helper leader.
And so here again we figure out that like I am in the same position I was prior to the wreck. Like, I'm still trying to dive into my faith and still kind of being on the other side. And so we get there, and it was very hard to get in the van, even in the front seat. It was just hard to get there in general. Yeah. And being able to be strong enough to do that without...
We changed the road, the way we go to camp, too.
Yeah.
Just to not go on that.
Go on that road. And so... we get there, and all these kids are like, what do we do? Where do we go? Like, half of them have never been to this camp before. The AC stopped working, and so we're sitting there, and I just remember Julia laying hands on the AC and is like, we're going to pray for this. And I'm like, well, girl, this is not going to, solve my sweaty armpit, whatever. And so, I'm sitting there like, God, you better make this work or something. Yeah. And so, once again, I'm just sitting there like, no, this is not going to work. I can't do this. Once again, the devil working at me. And keep in mind, I've never been able to do the leader part of it. And so the kids get to play big games. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going with the kids, and they're like, no, you're going with the leaders. And so when the kids get to play big games, the leaders get to go in to the church and actually get fed and get not physically fed, but spiritually fed.
They have their own church going on.
Yeah, basically. And so in that moment, this guy was like, there is someone in here that has been running from God. Mm-hmm. You've been held to a high standard multiple times, but every time you go, you choose the wrong way to go. And you were called to be a youth pastor. You were called, wow. Which I was. I left that part out at one of our church camps. I was called to work with youth. And so I'm never, I was like, okay, cool, we can be friends. Yeah. And so they were called to be in youth ministry. They've gotten multiple second chances. And even them being here is one of those chances. And I'm, sitting there, I'm like, oh, dang it. Yeah, dang it. And so what was even cooler, the guy that was doing that, he was talking about prior to that, right after that, he was like, I remember how hard it was when we were all here waiting on everybody to show up and San Sabbath didn't show up because of the circumstance. And he goes, I remember everybody dropping everything. It was completely silent until everybody started praying. And so I was like, all right, God, I get it. I asked for a sign and you gave it to me, whatever. And so, in that moment, I rededicated my life to the Lord, and then from there, I got
goosebumps.
Yeah, and then from there, it just went up, from there. So, Daryl and Charla were tired, and so I remember just being that person that was running with my head cut off and, going crazy.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
So, my parents were the youth pastors, and that lasted, a
year or two. Yeah.
Wait,
maybe? Yeah, something like that.
2 years? Maybe it was longer
They
than
can
that,
correct us.
Yeah. But it's hard to be youth pastor.
Yeah, it's hard.
Because teenagers are hard. I am one, and I just know.
Yeah.
And so then, it just go through youth pastors really fast when you're not called to be the youth pastor. Only for a season. And so then went from my parents to then Daryl and Charla, and then from Daryl and Charla.
Yeah. So, Daryl and Charla were kind of getting to that point where they didn't know what to do. They wanted to grow the youth group. They wanted to do this. Keep in mind, our youth group was maybe 30, 20 people when probably not even.
It was 15. It was more like a small group Bible study.
Yeah, which was great, and we loved that part. Sometimes I pray that we get to have that intimate relationship with the Bible and stuff. But that happened, and I just remember one night, and I was just stressed out. I apologize, Daryl, I love you forever. I was stressed out. I was offended in a way because I felt like I was doing all of these things behind the scenes and never getting noticed, and feeling like I worked so hard and sometimes it would fall through, or I was working hard and I wouldn't get the credit where credit was due, and we are all been there. And so even now I know probably some of our youth leaders that are helping feel that way about me. And so that's also why, like, I try to commend them in some type of way or make them feel included, because I was that person. And so I remember texting him one night, and he did tell me, like, when I came back, he was like, whenever you're ready, like, it's yours. And I was like, okay, you know, whatever. You know, that's easy. Yeah. So you're going to let me write it out until, like, okay, whatever. And so I remember having that, and it wasn't, the way I asked wasn't the best way. I was angry, and I probably shouldn't have done it in anger. But I remember having that conversation with him, and he was like, okay, like, we'll just figure it out. Like, you know, this isn't what happened. Like, you know, that's just more personal information that I'm not going to put out there. But, like, that was just a conversation between us. And he was like, okay, like, we're going to talk to elders, you know, and be careful what you ask for. And so right there and then, it was that summer, and they're like, okay, you're being ordained. Like, you know, like, and I remember walking into the room with all the elders, in which our elders are kind of like grandpas to me. Like, I don't know how to explain that, but, like, when you're in a church for so long, like, they're your grandpas or, like, your uncles or whatever. And so walking in there, I've never felt so intimidated in my life. But, like,
feels knowing like you're being judged by family.
And so I walk in there, all of these dudes, and your Nana was like, do you want me to go so it's not just you? And
I remember waiting. It's so funny how it, like, I remember waiting in my Sunday school classroom because I knew that you just walked in, and I was waiting, and I was praying, and I was like, dude, Jesus, I really want Dynasty to be here. And you walked down the hallway, and I was like, did you get it? And then you were just like, kept walking. I was like, that's what I just prayed for. And you went back to worship service.
That's so funny. But then she asked to be in there or whatever, and they prayed over me, and it was more of like, what are you gonna do in this situation? And I'm like, man, they're like really drilling me. And I'm like, I don't know. What is your stance on if two girls are holding hands? Tell them not to hold hands if they're being weird. Like, it's like, yes, literally. Like my answers were very young, and so like it was just so like I kind of got nervous, and they're like, you did so good, and I'm like, really? Because I felt like I just botched that. Like, there's no way they're gonna let me be in charge. Like, and so then, literally after that, they're like, we're so excited. Like, you know, this is so cool, and it's cool because like our elders now, like Edward was the guy that was picking us up in the van. Little me in the van that I was getting rides that I wasn't supposed to, or me hiding in the back of his van so he dropped me off last because I was gonna get in trouble when I got home. And so like. Romero was our youth pastors at that time, and then Daryl and Teresa, or just Daryl in general now, is an elder, and he was our children's pastor, and then went from our youth pastor and all that good stuff. So just being able to see everything go in full swing, it's pretty cool. So they allowed me to do that, and then I remember I got a boyfriend, and as soon as I got a boyfriend, like I got in the youth pastor position, and I got a boyfriend, and they were like, do you plan on marrying this person? Do you plan on having him involved? Like, well,
it's he come to church?
Yes. That's funny.
You could have done so much better. Okay, all these youth kids that you started growing are like judging this dude as soon as he comes to church.
And so then I was like, yeah, this ain't it. Like, like this one's not it. Like, whatever. But then I got to a point where I was just like, man, like, I want to be...
That's right, he went to Winter Jam with us.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, okay, anyways, besides the point.
Sorry.
Married now, love my husband. So I got to a point in my life where I'm like, dude, I'm about to be in, like, 24, like, I need a boyfriend, like, you know, like, I don't need a boyfriend, but I want to be like everybody else, because everybody else serving here isn't single, everybody else is married, and so I'm like, God, like, this is it, like, I want a man, like, and be careful what you ask for. And so I remember going to the first leadership meeting, and it's so funny because, like, at this leadership meeting, everybody's usually older, and then it's me. And so, like, and so they started praying, and they were like, we got to pray over this one. And I'm like, oh, dang it. And so they start praying. And specifically Maria, she started praying because I guess God just told her the desire of my heart to be able to have a partner to serve with me. And she began to pray, and she was like, Lord, just please send Dynasty a chocolate man. Like a strong in faith chocolate man. And I'm like, why is he got to be chocolate? And so, like, I'm sitting there. She's like, we know. And so I'm like, okay, God, like, you're going to bring him to me, like, whatever. And so even in that moment, my friends that I was hanging out with were still living for the world. And that's a testimony of itself till nowadays. But the friends I was hanging out with were still doing that. So, like, the boys that I would date would be around, like, to be able to go out and do what they were doing. And I was like, yeah, that's not for me, like, I can't do that. And so when I wasn't looking for a boyfriend, I met Dalen, and it was more supposed to be, like, a fun, like, conversation, like, we're not going to get together, whatever. And so what God had was what God had. And so Dalen didn't drink. Dalen didn't do drugs. Dalen didn't go out. He was very antisocial. His parents were pastors, and he's adopted, and so his adopted parents were the pastors, and so even then, like, just being able to hear that and know, like, he's sticking it out, like, he's doing what he needs to do, I was like, okay, I need to do what I need to do. And so the more I got into the Word, the more I got closer to God, the more that everything else just disappeared and I had no desire for it. And so just kind of skipping that over, like, I got really into my Word. I stopped drinking. I stopped going out all the time, which was, like, me and my best friend, when we were, like, heartbroken prior to, like, we would binge, like, every day. Like, it was just, like, I'm honest, like, that's what we would do and that's what we knew to do. And so now just looking back at that and, like, not really having a desire, or kind of, like, sitting in a room full of people that you don't know and, like, you don't fit in, and everything you try to do, like, you still feel awkward and you want to go home. That's me now when I go anywhere. And so I met Dalen. He went to youth camp with us because somebody couldn't go and he had to fill in. And it was so funny because I remember being so mad at him because he acted like a camper and not a leader. Yeah. And just being able to hear, I guess everybody that goes for the first time has to be a camper first if they've never been, just because they get to experience that, and then from there they're like, oh, I get it, like, I need to be this person. And so after that, we started meeting each other's families and everything, and even in that, like, when he would come down, like, he would stay at my house, and so even then, like, that's when words would be questioned, like, what are you doing? Like, you're a youth pastor. Why is he staying at your house? Like, why is he doing this? And so, he knew what he wanted. I knew what I wanted. And so even then, that's when the conversations were like, if we're going to continue to do this, we're going to have to do it the right way. Like, I can't do this and say that I'm a youth pastor and preach this to the kids while this is happening. And so we had
that's what you, like, when we talked about earlier, that's what you saw as in the Catholic Church, and then you're trying to go to church because you're like, I'm seeing these people do this while they're teaching this. Yeah. And it's just weird, and so then you grow up. And so I was like, that can't be me. I was like, we're not doing that. And I remember talking to your mom and dad, and we sat there and we had a really good conversation about, like, what we wanted. And I remember we went, like, right after we had that conversation, CJ and her kids were like, y'all are gonna get married, like, he's gonna propose to you, whatever. And so backtrack on that, like, he already bought a ring and everything, and CJ knew about it and didn't tell me, and I'm still mad at you. So, and we were going on family vacation with my parents, and we were going to Colorado, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is the perfect time, like, you know. And so even at Colorado, I don't remember what happened, but me and Dalen got into a fight, and nobody knew.
You were sick.
No, not then. Not yet. Oh. That's when we came back. So we were in Colorado, and me and Dalen. Oh, okay.
I think I got sick in Colorado.
Okay. Yeah. Just a little testament. He's probably gonna kill me for saying this, but, like, somebody had called his phone, like, multiple times, right? And so I'm like, and I'm, like, Mexican when it comes to, like, dudes, so, like, I'm crazy. Sorry, ladies, but, like, we crazy. And so I remember, like, somebody calling him, and then I was like, what the heck? And so then a text message comes up, and I think he was, like, downstairs with my dad or something, and I was like, what the heck? And it was like, how would you do so-and-so like this? Like, she really liked you. Like, wow, how are you going to choose this person over her? What? Blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I was pissed at this point. Sorry, teen talk. I was so mad at this point, and I was like, nah, we're done. I told you she's a real youth pastor. I was like, we're done. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and tell girls to know their worth while I'm sitting here in this bed at my family vacation while somebody's texting, like, my soon-to-be husband. Like, I already know, like, this is what we decided, you know. And so I was so mad. I was upset, and he comes in the room, and he's like,
what did I do? Like, he was already, like, he was like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Like, because he could tell. And he sat there and was like, I've never met this person. Well, turns out they had the wrong number. And so, I'm like, this is God really testing me right now. Like, the devil's really just trying to attack something that God is gonna make for the kingdom. Like, you know, and so I remember sitting there, and I was mad, and I couldn't enjoy time with my parents, and none of them knew this either. Like, no, they're gonna be like, Dylan, you know, like, whatever, but, like, nobody knew this, and so I was just so angry, and, but then, I don't know what happened, but after that, like, I was like, okay, like, I trust you, like, you say you're for me, like, this is what we need, like, whatever, and so, I really do believe he probably would have proposed to me that, like, in Colorado, but, yeah, that didn't happen.
You don't know if he would have or not, you never asked?
I didn't, like, yeah, and so, I was like, okay, you know, whatever, and, so then we go home, we're on the way home, and he's about to leave back, because he was a server, and he's working out of state, and we're staying at my mom's house, and it was New Year's, and we got back, and we were both, like, super sick. He was sick first, and, then, like, I got sick quickly after, but, like, I don't know what it was, but it was death, and, like, I was out of it, and I just remember, him trying to convince me to go outside and pop fireworks and everything, because I was like, I don't want to go. Like, I'm obvious. Like, I was sassy, and I was like, I'm not going out there to pop fireworks. Like, I'm literally dying. Like, get away from me. And so I just remember him being like, oh, all right, you know. And then I guess I passed out again. But then when I woke up, he was like, are you sure you don't want? I was like, yes. Like, leave me alone.
This is definitely testing y'all up for.
Yeah. I was like, leave me alone. And so Dalen proposed to me, like, there. Like, while I was all, like, felt like death. Like, I was out of, like, whatever. And he was like, well, now he says, I just did it because I knew if you would have said no, I could have changed your mind and said, made you say yes because you were out of it. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And so he proposed to me or whatever, and, like, then it just went up from there, I guess. So, yeah. But that's that.
That's
and,
so sweet.
Yeah. So now we're married, and he serves the youth, and the youth like him more than me for the first couple of months. And
What?
I'm just kidding. But it really makes a difference because, I mean, our youth group grew when it was just me, but when there was two people that were willing to put anything on the line for kids, our youth group has, like, tripled. We push, like, 80-something, 89, almost 90 every Wednesday.
In a small town.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
In a small town.
It's a blessing. It's not always about the numbers either.
Yeah.
When it comes to youth kids, it's about the hearts. And
Yeah.
the hearts behind
Yeah.
it. And the hearts equal, like, a person.
Yeah. And everybody is always, like, they've been asking me lately, like, how do your youth group grow? How do your youth group grow? And I was like, you know what? We weren't trying to recruit. We weren't trying to get numbers. We were simply, like, the kids that are hurting, we want you to find Jesus. We don't care where you go, because there's kids that go other places on Wednesdays and then come right back when they don't have church there, and we love them just the same. Like, we're not going to get mad at you for going to Hill Country. We're not going to get mad at you for going to Catholic Church or to First Baptist. Like, we're solely here to make sure that you get where you need to go with your relation. Yeah, spiritually. Yeah, like, that's us. And if we see you at school, we're going to talk to you. If you tell us to come to your game, we're going to try everything in our might to come and cheer you on. And even if we don't make it, we're going to feel that, because that's just our heart. It's there for the youth, and that's just us in general. So, I mean, really, that's...
Yeah.
So...
No, yeah, so it's just awesome to see how far you've come.
Yeah.
And that's really why I wanted you on the podcast, is because of the testimony thing and everything. It is great. And if you're a teenager that is struggling right now with feeling lost or just sad, especially now it's summer, I don't know, you can feel lonelier in the summer and more like, I'm just trapped at home and don't really have anything to do. I mean, get involved in a church. Yeah. That's all. Like, I mean, church camps are coming up. All these things. Our church camp this year, like, to know from, we're going to the same church camp that Teresa and Dynasty were going to go to, and Daryl, and then the same ones that Daryl and Dynasty. Like, it's the same one.
It's the same one.
Same one that Dynasty got spoken to, like, at about.
Yeah.
You know, like, the same one. It's so cool to know that, like, we're getting to go in, and now she's taking how many this year?
We have 52.
52 kids.
And that's without leaders,
Yeah, so if you're an elder on the church, figure out...
we need a transportation. And if you're hearing this and want to sponsor our transportation, we love you. And that's a Jesus thing. Yeah, we're we're gonna get in trouble for this. Well, yeah. See, my motto was a youth pastor is to do it and then ask for forgiveness later, and it works every time. Jesus is a forgiving God. I mean, that's just how it works. But yeah, so
so that was successful.
Just some words of encouragement though, like the deeper you get into your relationship with God, the easier things are being able to deal with, and me and Dalen are learning that now, even in the season that we're in. And so it's like you're on such a high, and then you're gonna hit that valley. And so when you hit that valley, some people are not gonna be able to notice because you have so much peace. But that peace doesn't come with just going to church on Sundays and going to hang out on Wednesdays at the youth group. That peace comes from actually diving into your word and wanting to do better and filling that relationship with God. Because like I said at the very beginning, like Jesus didn't die to bring the law back. Like he didn't die with it. He literally came to fulfill it. And so knowing that he fulfilled something that no one's ever going to get to fulfill, and he was the only one that did, it died with him. And so it's not about the religion. It's not about the steps you take. It's about the relationship, because you can be Jaylee's age and have a better relationship with God than a 50-year-old or whatever, because it's not about your age. And that's just something we teach as youth kids. Like, what you give off is what you're planting. And so I think that's also why we are such a successful youth group, is because we're real. Like, we're not going to sit there and put up on a facade and say, like, we don't do this and we don't do that, but yet our kids are seeing us doing those things. And so we're not those people. If our kids see us doing those things, we're going to be, one, held accountable, and two, we're going to let them know that we're doing something to be held accountable. And so that's just my advice to anyone, even parents like that are dealing with lost teens, and because I know this just isn't like for the teens that are watching this. But I
mean, I have parents, and parents even say that they watch this podcast to get to know their teen better.
Yeah, and so like even then, like parents, just a words of encouragement. Don't be that that burden from keeping your kids from coming to church. And also, don't be discouraged by them making the wrong choices. Encourage them, and don't try to shove the Bible down their throat. More so, just go heart to heart with them and be real. Don't let them believe that you are perfect, because I can tell you right now, no one is perfect. And if you are trying to protect your kid from what you used to be, that was my parents. Like, they didn't want us to be anything like them. And so, don't protect your kids from being something that you used to be. Protect them from being something you used to be, using the word of God and enforcing that, because when you base it off of what you used to be, you hold an expectation to your kid that's not able to be met, because you all lived in the same world. Not necessarily the same world, because teens nowadays live in a world far worse than y'all's. Like, it wasn't about just smoking cigarettes. Now it's like smoking pot and doing meth and like
vapes and
vaping, and
there's so much more options. And now with the internet too. Oh my gosh, you could just one click on your phone and there's so many situations. So I like what you were saying with like encourage your kids to be there for your kids, and be real with them. Like, as soon as my parents told them something that they struggled with or went through, then I was like, oh man, y'all struggle with things too that I had no idea, because y'all wouldn't tell us. But as soon as you open up and start being honest, then, you know, it doesn't make your kid feel like, oh, we're equal, like, y'all are less than or anything. It makes them feel like, oh, I respect you more because you were honest and not fake.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing, like, just me being hard-headed, my dad used to say, like, when I was young, like, I had to do this, and I had to go to work, and I had to do this, and I would be probably the only one that would talk back, honestly. And I'd be like, well, I'm not you. Like, cool. Like, even in those instances, he was like, well, I used to do this, and I used to do that, and I don't want you to be that person. And I'm like, I'm not you. Like, period, I'm not you. And so I think when you hold your expectation of who you want it to be on your kid, you allow them to rebel and be exactly who you don't want them to be.
Right.
And so I think that comes with, one, praying, and two, if you're holding that expectation on your kid, you need to be holding it for your household and you as a person, because you can't hold an expectation that you can't bear yourself either. Right. So...
yeah, that was good. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I feel like we could talk forever, but...
yeah, we're all good. That was whenever me and CJ do this, too. That was good. Yeah, okay. Well, I hope y'all got something out of Dynasty's. I really need to, like, search up how to end the podcast.
Yeah.
Hope y'all got something out of Dynasty's testimony. It was great. Yeah. Bye.